Hey everyone, DJ here, welcome back. I had multiple different character suggestions for this installment of the Thomas Characters Explained series, and those ranged from Norman to Hurricane to the Logging Locos. I even considered doing a video about Diesel 10, and maybe I'll cover them all someday, but funny enough, I had multiple suggestions for a character that I didn't even realize had a fan interest at all. So this week we are heading back to the Great Railway Show and venturing into the German railway scene to explain Frieda, the German contender in the strongest engine competition. Frieda is a streamlined German DB Class 10 locomotive who first appeared in the 2016 Thomas & Friends film The Great Race. Frieda, like all the rest of the international engines, arrived at Brendam docks when their ship docked there accidentally, to which she and the rest of the engines got back on the ship and made their way back to the mainland for the railway show. She appeared later when Thomas, attempting to get Gordon's missing safety valve to him, mistook Frieda for Gordon, causing her to scoff at Thomas and remark,
"Do I look like a Gordon? My name is Frieda."
Frieda then competed alongside the likes of Henry, Hero, Shane, and Vinny in the strongest engine competition, and after the railway show, she returned to Germany. She also appeared in the 2017 Great Race Friends Near and Far YouTube short, Frieda the Grumpiest Engine, where she and Ivan travel through Western Europe on their way home to their respective countries, with Frieda becoming jealous of Ivan's popularity amongst the locals while she gets no attention, eventually finding out that it's due to the fact that she doesn't smile and comes off as grumpy, to which she then attempts smiling and it works in her favor. After that, she never appears again, not even in Big World Big Adventures, which, side note, it's funny to me how much the writing crew skipped over Europe in Big World Big Adventures, but whatever. Right now, I would like to take a dive into Friedas Basis. Before I start this segment, I'm going to apologize for any German names and words I mispronounce. Thank you all for your patience. Frieda is based on a Deutsche Bundesbahn streamlined 462 Class 10 locomotive, of which only two were built. Outshopped in 1957 by the Krupp firm for the DB in West Germany in 1957, the Class 10s were nicknamed Black Swans for their elegant shape. The two locomotives of this class, 10001 and 10002, were envisioned as the replacement for the DRG Class 01 and 01.10. The problem was, however, that the Class 10s were delivered late and had a high axle load of over 22 tons, which made it that they could only operate on certain routes which could bear that weight. Thus the plan to replace the 01s and 01.10s fell through. The Class 10s were well-performing locomotives, boasting a top speed of 87 miles per hour and a power output of 2,470 horsepower. They also had a service weight of 131.1 tons. The locomotives were also designed with easy maintenance and low repair costs in mind, having a conical smokebox door and streamlining that, while reducing wind resistance, also prevented dirt from reaching the cylinders and stopped them from cooling too rapidly. What's neat about the two Class 10s is that they were both oil-firing locomotives, with 10001 being partially oil-fired at first, and then later converted to a fully oil-fired locomotive, as its sibling 10002 was from the beginning. The Class 10s worked as heavy express steam locomotives until 10002 was retired in January 1967 due to a broken side rod, and 10001 seeing its retirement on June 27, 1968. Unfortunately, 10002 was scrapped in 1972, however 10001 was preserved and can be viewed at the German Steam Locomotive Museum in Neuenmarkt, Würzburg. Now, from that alone, it's pretty plausible that Frieda could be 10001, as it's literally the only one of her class left. However, she doesn't wear the same number and very clearly does not have the same livery, so while possible, I think she might just be a fictional third member of the class, but who knows. What I do take issue with is the fact that she is a streamlined steam locomotive and for some reason is taking part in the strongest engine competition, which her Meet the Contenders short also touches on. Like, why isn't she in the Great Race? Her job literally would have been fast passenger trains. It's just a really weird decision. Now, I will concede that yes, technically she would have pulled heavy passenger trains, and her class wasn't the fastest, so it kind of makes sense. But it just would have made more sense to me if she was specifically a strong locomotive intended for goods traffic, like the DR Class 25.10, built in East Germany in the early 1950s. And again, yes, it technically was a mixed traffic engine, but my point still stands. As it is, though, Friedas Basis makes enough sense, and she works pretty well. My problems basically just boil down to train fan OCD, and I don't really have any other problems with her basis. I have to say, I like Frieda. She has a really cool basis, but like basically all of the characters we will talk about in this series, she was handled very poorly by the showrunners. Now, I understand that The Great Race was only one movie, and that it's pretty difficult to characterize 13 new characters beyond a few lines here and there within the time span of an hour. The thing is, I still don't feel like the crew was really trying even in those small moments. It's more of an issue with Big World Big Adventures later on, but the international engines and their respective cultures and countries are often treated like afterthoughts, or at the very most, just the most basic stereotypical information you could think of when you think about those countries. Like, oh, we have an engine from Germany? Let's give her the most stereotypical German name possible and also make her grumpy. Now, again, there wasn't a lot of time in the finished Great Race movie for Frieda to be characterized, but the producers of Thomas & Friends literally greenlit an entire rebrand centered around Thomas traveling the globe, a perfect opportunity to see these characters again, only for that to not happen both in the Big World Big Adventures movie and show. It honestly pisses me off how sidelined Europe was in the movie. Like, all the cool railways from there we missed out on just absolutely sucks. To be fair though, all of the other international railways and characters weren't really treated with that much nuance, so Europe probably wouldn't be different either. Bit of a side tangent, I know, but getting back to Frieda, I think like Vinny, you could easily fix her by having the internationals spend more time on Sodor, and give them some more time to interact with the Sudrian characters. I also think that it was stupid that right as the show was heading into Big World Big Adventures, the showrunners had the Great Race Friends Near and Far shorts made, where Frieda was featured and actually given character development. But it was just kept as a YouTube short and not a proper episode. Just make those shorts into episodes and give these guys development, and it would make Frieda and the rest of the internationals so much better. Okay, so for this video, I thought it would be fun to introduce a new segment to the series called Collection Corner. This won't be for every character, but for characters like Frieda who don't really have that much history attached, I felt it would be fun to look into their merchandise and give my thoughts. So here we have Frieda's 2016 wooden railway model, which I have to say is a pretty solid toy. The detail on her is really awesome. Her paint job is really stellar, her wheel configuration is great and reflects her basis very nicely, and funny enough, her tender does have coal in it, therefore making the model inconsistent with her oil-burning basis, but there isn't any physically molded coal, so you can get away with just saying that the tender is just painted black on top. I really like her front end streamlining and how, even with the constraints of the wooden railway style, they still managed to replicate how it wraps around to the best of their ability. I'm honestly really happy that Frieda only got a Thomas Wooden Railway release, as although she would have been cool in Take and Play or Trackmaster, those ranges just wouldn't have done her justice. Thomas Wooden Railway Frieda is a great model. I'm giving it a solid 8 out of 10. In conclusion, Frieda is a character that, like everyone in this series, shouldn't have been forgotten by the show, and definitely shouldn't have been relegated to a single YouTube cartoon. She has a really interesting basis, and her merchandise also does not disappoint. Truly a shame that we never got more of Frieda. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you have any suggestions for future characters I should cover, let me know in the comments. For the next video, I was thinking about covering either Gina or Norman, but only time and the voices of the people will tell. See you all in the next one. Bye, guys!